What up, people? What's good? Salute.
Yes, sir.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Salute to the tribe. We're hip hop and comics and hip hop. We're a niche channel. We're a niche channel. And reserved for the best is super dope. I do sell comics. Check me out on Instagram at 6th_element_comic. We do live auctions, live claim sales. I rock with Tooth and Claw, hit animated television series. The Scotty Young joint, blowing up fast. X-23. So this is dope, man. All right, so this is. Ooh, sorry about that. Needed that extra long intro. This is the Sixth Element of Hip Hop. Welcome, everybody. I'm your host, Reno Noir, and this is my co-host over here, Stu Dog. What's up, brother? And my sort of semi co-host, Sada, are the female perspective, in the building. Yes, welcome everybody. Word is Bond. Who we got in the chat? Everybody chilling. All right, so y'all get a chance to watch Moon Knight Ep 5.
Yes, I just finished recording my review, so yeah, I just finished that.
Oh, well, before we get to Moon Knight, there's some other big news we gotta talk about.
Oh,
what's this?
What's going on?
What's this?
The Batman has a sequel that's been etched down with Robert Pattinson returning as Batman. Catwoman.
I was gonna save that for DC Day, but yeah.
It'd be too late by then. We got to do it now.
Yeah, no, I thought about that too. I was like, yeah. Might have to bust this out. Yeah.
They said most of the cast is returning. Who can return or are supposed to return? But they won't. They said they're not giving any more. Well, the director said he'll give more details as time goes on. But
yeah,
as of right now, he just confirmed everybody that's returning, and that it is green lighted for a sequel, and it's getting ready to go into works. But
both Reeves and Pattinson will be, they'll both be back.
They'll both be back.
Movie.
Yes.
There aren't many other details known yet, but the film isn't the only thing to look forward to in Reeves' Batman universe. There's also a spinoff that we have in the works with Penguin.
Yes.
Penguin, that's going to be dope too. So lots of Batman stuff to feed your need.
Well, everybody was worried if there was going to be a sequel for the Batman.
Right.
That was the big.
I kind of knew there would be. I mean, it's not a surprise to me. I mean, the way they ended it, and the success that it had is like $760 million global at the box office, watched by 4.1 million households on HBO Max the first week. So,
right. I think that's what pushed it over the edge. The fact that the home release did better than the theater release. But we got COVID.
Yeah.
But the theater release didn't do too bad. But when you stream that many people as there would be going to the movie, they made money off it. So of course, Hollywood's all about that dollar bill, yo. Yeah, if they can get that money, there'll be a sequel. I don't care how bad the movie. Ghost Rider was bad, but it made enough money to get a sequel.
Yeah, I guess it's the same reason why Venom is getting a trilogy. They're getting a third movie.
There's also too, Reno, another Spider-Man villain.
Yes, with that
what is his name? The wrestler guy. Yeah, he's getting his own movie.
Yeah.
And people are kind of worried because they're like, look, you keep giving us these Spider-Man villains without Spider-Man. They don't work without Spider-Man. So
nobody wants
to stop giving. Right, nobody wants to see him.
I don't know. I'm gonna be so intrigued if they do a Sinister Six. How exactly is that gonna work without Spider-Man? Like, why would they come together when they've never met Spider-Man?
I know. It just doesn't make sense.
They don't come together to be the ultimate crime family. They come together to kill Spider-Man.
Right. So it's like
no, that's what she said. She said, how are they going to do it without Spider-Man? Like why would they come together?
I'm agreeing.
Without Spider-Man. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Why would they come together without Spider-Man? Like, I don't
They
get
don't.
that
Yeah.
either. I mean, I guess they feel because Spider-Man's so big that these characters can carry
Well,
themselves, but
what it is
Hmm.
it's like you said before many times, right? Hollywood's not that smart, and basically they're just squeezing the cash cow. They've got all these properties that they own, but they can't just spit out a Spider-Man movie, every 6 months. So what can we do to make money? We can use these famous villains and make movies out of them. It's just a cash grab. Is all it is. There's no logical reason. It's not like they're meeting any comic book, you know, um, storylines or anything like that. They're not doing it for the fans. They're just doing it to make a buck. And
And you know
we have
what's
to
funny?
suffer.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can finish. I'm
No,
sorry.
I was done. I was
Oh, I was just saying, you know, it's funny. Like, I think even no matter how this movie turns out with this wrestler, they're gonna give us a better representation of what Bane should be in live action. They're gonna acknowledge that he's Spanish, and they're gonna give him a luchador mask. I feel in my spirit they're gonna do it for this guy,
wait.
and
I
but
missed
you know
something.
we
What are
still
you
haven't
talking
gotten to
about?
the Bane.
What are
So
we talking about now?
I'm talking about the wrestler who's the Spider-Man villain who's getting his own movie. I don't know his name. Forgot his name.
Oh, it's not Bane though, right?
No, it's not. But
no, it's
he's
not Bane.
similar. He's similar in him being he's I think he's Latin, and
Gotcha.
he also wears a luchador mask.
Yes.
So I just find it funny that they're definitely gonna acknowledge that before they do it for Bane over
It's
DC.
El Mutaro,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
El
El Mitaro,
Mureto, El Mureto, or
Yes.
Mureto, or Muro.
Murado.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Murado. Yeah.
he's actually only appeared in like 2 comics.
Wow.
One, I
So
think.
he's
Yeah,
real
two. Yeah,
unusual.
yep, exactly 2 comics. He's appeared in exactly 2 comics.
Yeah,
And the comics were
and
he
it's
went to
El Muerto, the
El
death.
Muerto, El Muerto.
Muerto.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he went to fight. He went to New York to do something and fight, and he wound up fighting Spider-Man. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Maybe
Reggaeton rapper and actor Bad Bunny is gonna, be the character. So he's a
oh
reggaeton,
yeah.
Bad Bunny. And
Yeah,
yeah,
he
he's
did got
he's
it.
a luchador mask that grants him power. He gets his powers from the mask. But yeah,
Yes.
he's very obscure. He's been in literally 2 issues, 2 comics,
Huh.
and so they're. But yeah, I mean that's a perfect example of Sony trying to milk the cash. Trying to squeeze every drop and figure out what characters there are out there that they don't want to waste. You know what I mean? Because like they don't want to use, you know, Electro or somebody that's a really big Spider-Man villain without Spider-Man. They want those characters to be in the Spider-Man movies, but if they're gonna make a movie with a villain that's is a Spider-Man villain and Spider-Man's not in, make it an obscure villain, I guess is their strategy. I think
Yeah.
it's ass backwards
Yeah.
because if you don't have Spider-Man in there, what are you gonna do to bring the interest?
Yeah.
It's a character no one knows about. So
And he's
what
like seriously obscure.
oh yeah.
But I mean, I guess for them that gives them a lot of creative freedom with the character because no one knows about him and he's only in 2 issues. So
Yeah, and they can do whatever they want.
Yeah,
yeah,
they can do right.
Yeah.
But it just makes no sense because
yeah,
all right, like look at Venom. Venom needs Spider-Man. You need Spider-Man and Venom. I mean, you can't have Spider-Man without Venom.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
It's just how it right. That's just how
yeah.
it came to be in the comic.
That's why Venom exists because
Exactly,
of
because
Spider-Man.
Because of Spider-Man, right?
Why Venom has a spider on his chest. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
He's literally created to get revenge on Spider-Man who rejected him. It's the symbiote. So there's literally no reason for Venom to exist without Spider-Man first. I was a little worried when it came out. I was like, so how are they gonna say that Eddie got it before Spider-Man?
Exactly.
Because Spider-Man gets the symbiote first. Obviously, we know that, but I guess maybe the masses don't even know that now because of this movie.
Man, they could just go watch Spider-Man 3 real quick and then come back.
And a lot of people have probably seen that and they probably know, and that's probably what they figured, on. But this El Muerto movie is boggling to me. It is really mind-blowing what they're doing, why they're doing it. Obviously
Nobody
they don't
knows.
Yeah,
It got
obviously they don't.
green lit.
Yeah, but obviously they don't own Bane, and so they can't make a Bane movie, which I
But
would
you know
love to.
what? I got asked the question before when I read the article. A lot of people were saying that they like superhero movies. They're loving them. They love the production. But a lot of people were asking the question, is it time to move on to some new heroes? I mean, why does it always have to be Spider-Man, Captain America, Wonder Woman, Batman?
Oh yeah,
Uh,
No.
yeah, a
I
lot of
love.
people asking. They're like, listen, can we move on to something else? Because you're making these movies about these like like you guys said it best with Batman.
Mhm.
It wasn't an origin story. It's year
Mm-hmm.
two. They
Mm-hmm.
kicked the all right, we know what happened already. Like you were saying, Reno, we don't want to see the pearls falling all over the ground anymore. We don't want
Right.
to see none of that. Superman, how many times do we have to see Krypton blow up? We get it. We get it. I mean, Wonder Woman, we know she was on Themyscira. We know her mother. Whichever one they want to go to, her mother made her out of clay. Whatever, and then Zeus gave her life. Whatever one you want to go with. Um, how many times are we going to see that?
Right.
And Hollywood is in love with telling origin stories. Like moving on to Moon Knight, watching Moon Knight, that's what it was. It was an origin story in reverse. It's
Yeah.
just
Well,
an
they're
origin
so.
story told backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the origin story is such a go-to, ready-made story plot, fully, already ready. All they got to do is tell it. So it's really a way to not be creative.
Yeah.
Just keep doing the origin story thing. But El Muerto, um, is if you're not aware, is a pro wrestler whose power is his superhuman strength, and much like many pro wrestlers, the name and powers of El Muerto have been passed down through generations. And yes, he's actually fought, and worked with Spider-Man. But I'm thinking he's like, well, at CinemaCon 2022, Sony exec Sanford Penich announced that El Muerto would hit theaters January 12th, 2024. So it's quite a ways down the road.
Okay.
But it's half a year after Madam Web, which is coming out July 7th, 2023, which will be pretty dope. But this puts El Muerto in the 2022 to 2026 window of Sony and Disney's Plus deal, and its Netflix deal as well. Basically, El Muerto will arrive on Netflix after the paid video on demand window, and then hit Disney Plus after that.
Oh.
And this film has apparently been in somewhat rushed development because Bad Bunny had told Sony that he really wanted to find the right comic book character for himself. According to Deadline, Benito was the one who suggested El Muerto after Sony was pleased with his performance in the upcoming action movie Bullet Train. So it seems more like it's Bad Bunny that is making this happen, and why they're doing this character. So it's like they wanted to make a movie with Bad Bunny for some reason, and they wanted to make a superhero movie with Bad Bunny. That's the inspiration. So I don't know, but El Muerto, just so people who we're talking about, he's a super strength. His super strength has been, according to Marvel, passed down through the generations via a wrestling mask, a luchador mask. Each El Muerto has had to earn their safety and powers through fighting the evil El Dorado. The biggest generational gap for the El Muerto powers came when Marcus Estrada bought his son Juan Carlos to El Dorado, who wasn't ready, and Marcus then sacrificed himself to protect Juan Carlos. And then this act earned Juan Carlos 10 years time to prepare himself for the fight for his powers. And then the mission was simple. He has to fight a masked wrestler and unmask him. And El Muerto makes sense for Bad Bunny because Bad Bunny is, if you're not familiar, a massive fan of professional wrestling. He's even wrestled on WWE on multiple occasions, including in a featured match, WrestleMania 37.
Wow.
And there, Benito showed off his skills, developed training, and impressed fans, and likely some doubters too. And when Bad Bunny's casting was announced, he appeared to say, "This is the perfect role for me. It will be epic to me." And this role also makes him the first Latino actor to lead a live-action Marvel film. So that's key. And but his connections to Spider-Man in the comics, at the end of the 10 years that El Dorado gave Juan Carlos, he was seen in New York City looking to work with J. Jonah Jameson to set up a charity event featuring a match between
Right, him and Spider-Man.
Him and Spidey, right? And it
Yeah,
kind of goes back to that first match where Peter Parker wrestled, that
the
first guy,
wrestler.
the first wrestler, right? But he's got to unmask Spider-Man and you all know that's the big thing. You can't reveal who Spider-Man is, and of course that didn't happen. And right as El Muerto was about to rip Spider-Man's mask off, Spider-Man stuck him with a poison, and El Dorado would soon come to claim Juan Carlo's life. But Spider-Man arrived and helped El Muerto defeat El Dorado. So he's sort of a villain. He's like an anti-villain, anti-hero, because he's
Oh,
kind of
that's perfect. Because they love doing that with all these solo films. Just
you
make
know
them anti-heroes or straight up heroes.
that's where Venom, yeah, is what they
Yeah.
did.
True.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just give us Bane, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I wish. It sounds like they're trying to tap into that Latino market.
Yeah, I
Well,
can
it's
see that.
good to, yeah, I can see that too, and it's good to finally have a Latino lead, because I don't, that's something that's never happened.
Yeah.
Of course, we've had black leads, Asian leads, with Shang-Chi. So it's kind of odd that they never did a Latino lead, but Slade said, "Let's hope it's big, then we can get a Spanish Bane."
Baby, please.
Big fingers crossed there. But with no further ado, the reason for our show, the Moon Knight episode 5 breakdown, and perhaps it's too much of a generalization to say that Marvel Cinematic Universe is designed for children, but
Yes.
it's absolutely designed in a way that isn't meant to exclude them. And even with the MCU's light geopolitics and frequent friendly gestures toward the military-industrial complex, at the end of the day, the franchise is carefully designed to remain firmly family-friendly, with mostly bloodless violence and nothing too frightening or intense. And for the most part, that's fine. The MCU could arguably be better without its fixation on comic book heroes as paramilitary agents, and stop making them, try to be like mercenary soldiers, and changing their costumes into like Kevlar and all this, and every step of the way, like Shang-Chi, is appreciated. However, sometimes the focus on 4-quadrant storytelling collides with the ambition of the story in a given MCU installment, as this week's Moon Knight illustrates. And the episode's called Asylum, and this is among the darkest, most intimately devastating stories Marvel Studios has ever told. It's an episode about a man's fractured mind finally shattering, and as he revisits the most traumatic moments of his life, his mom, the death of his little brother. It's fraught, terrible stuff, delivered with a light touch that might be too light for the content, but the horror is frequently undercut with moments of humor and a reticence to center that horror on screen. But the episode reached some pretty dark places, as viewers learned that Mark and Steven get to get away from the emotional and physical abuse of his mother, who blamed him for the death of his little brother. A tragic backstory was always the sort of expectation when it came to how the character's mental struggles began. So we kind of knew this was coming, and the creatives behind the scenes handled it, I think, extremely well.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, they really handled it. What do you call it? Respectfully, Oscar Isaac did an incredible job portraying both Mark and Steven as they journeyed through the recesses of their minds. I'm still waiting. Like, I keep waiting for Jake Lockley to pop up. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I don't even know what's gonna happen with him. Like, is he just gonna pop up in the last episode and just be there to be there? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I was really expecting him to come out this episode, because it would have given us,
Would have been the perfect time.
Exactly, and we would have had some time to kind of deal with that, and then because they love to, okay, we got to deal with this instead of just moving on to the story, and but now I don't know how that's gonna work, but the series' penultimate episode finally deals with Mark Spector's mental illness in a surprisingly delicate and respectful fashion. And
I'm glad we got this episode.
Me too.
It was needed. It's been needed this whole time. And I feel like my biggest complaint is that it should have been earlier in the show. Like maybe this could have been episode 4 or even 3. Like I wanted more time, and we don't have it. So it's like
Absolutely. That's been the whole okay, we got you, Slade. We got you, Slade.
yeah.
We're gonna break it down for you. Um, as though fans of the show ever doubted it, apparently Moon Knight doesn't even need to live in the present to be the best show Marvel's ever put out. It doesn't even need to feature most of its main players. Sorry to make Calamaway. Because where'd she go? But the show's breakout star, it's like I think it's her first deal to transcend the idea of what it means to be a superhero television show, moving so far beyond alien threats and hyper choreographed fight scenes that this week's episode almost creates a genre of its own. This is something kind of very different. At the offset, we pick up where last week's episode left off with Mark Spector and Stephen Grant now in two separate bodies, two separate people. And then you got Tawaret, he called her. That was the Egyptian hippo. Yeah, Tawaret. And she's the Tawaret. He rolled that last R. It's Tawaret. Tawaret. But anyway, yeah, she's the goddess of women and children and childbirth. Which is weird that that's who they have bring you to the afterlife.
Yeah, what? What was that about?
Yeah.
Well, officially, if you look it up, officially it says the goddess of protection.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's women, childbirth, protection, security, all these sort of tropes, family, that kind of thing. But she's just as cute and cuddly as she seems, revealing to Mark and Spector that they are in fact dead. And so that all-white psychiatric ward that they've found themselves in is not a dream, as some of us thought it might be, or a multiverse. It's actually a version of Duat, the Egyptian form of purgatory, where they just gotta wait there for their hearts to be balanced against the feather of Ma'at. And they put the feather on one end of the scale and put their heart on the other, and it's got to balance. If it doesn't balance, off the boat they go and buried, and then they get trapped in the sand. And basically, it's their version of of hell because you're stuck. Unfortunately, though, their hearts, which Tawaret unceremoniously yanks out of their chest, Temple of Doom style, num shabari, num shabari. I was like, oh, that's great. But send the scales. She's got the scales. They're just going nuts, and it doesn't quite balance out. And so she informs them that the scales have to balance in order to escape certain doom, accomplished only by coming to terms with one's own past. So they've got to sort of work it out with each other, talk it out, give each other the goods, let go of their secrets is what I sort of figured is what they're trying to do, and kind of spill the beans to each other, kind of both understand each other and stuff. And then through that strange purgatory, the audience is taken on a journey through Mark's and by extension Stephen's past, revealing memories of not only Mark's recent past, but his childhood as well. So it goes deep, and it's not an easy journey for them. It's not by any means, of happy time, but journeys through the afterlife and all kinds of myth, not just Egyptian, are never easy. I mean, if any type of mythology, whenever they do this, it's very traumatic usually, and is someone really a hero if they haven't proven their mettle. So it's kind of like a rite of passage. But Mark is unsurprisingly still resistant to Stephen at first, revealing his past. I think he doesn't want to let him realize that he's the one that's kind of the made up.
Yeah, because Stephen was like that layer of protection for Mark, and I think he's trying to keep that. He was trying to keep that going for as long as he could, but it didn't work.
Yeah, he didn't want him to know that he wasn't the main persona.
Right. Because I guess, like you said, Sada, you said it perfectly. If he realizes he's the made up one, he'll go crazy. He'll be unstable. He won't be that rock, that Mark created him to be. So on as we walk through the memories of Mark losing his younger brother and this spiral it sent both him and his mother, Wendy, on, and having waited 5 weeks to get any kind of information on the MCU version of Mark's past, reliving those painful memories with Mark almost feels like a kind of twisted catharsis. And as a typical of those with dissociative identity disorder, it is revealed that Stephen manifested as an alter during Mark's childhood as a way to protect himself from the abuse suffered at the hands of his mother, who believed him responsible for the death of his brother, which obviously he wasn't. He was a little kid. They both went on, an adventure, and they went spelunking in a cave, and the cave flooded. But his mother blamed him because his mother said, keep him safe, and,
Yeah.
of course, a tragedy happened, and then she went crazy. You lose a kid, there's no telling what your mind is going to do. I mean, you lose a kid, it could destroy a person. So that's understandable, but obviously it's fucked up what she did, and it fucked him up pretty bad. But we're also walked through the memories of Mark's time as a mercenary, which got interesting, confirming that his old military pal Bushman, a character many have been hoping to hear from, was responsible for the death of Layla's father. That we thought, she was kind of that he was blamed for. I'm trying to read the chat at the same time I'm talking here.
Oh, okay.
Slade's being funny. Well, are you still balanced? Hopefully next season we get more Moon Knight and Mr. Knight. Agree or disagree? Do you guys think this last episode was too trippy?
I'll say on its own, this episode is great. If you try and place it within the series as a whole, that's where it gets murky because it's just in such an odd place. So I don't know. I guess in terms of the series, as a whole, yeah, this episode's trippy as hell. But on its own, I feel like it works. So it's weird for me.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, because it kind of it's not the action packed, the Harrow's not even Harrow. It's definitely completely like a different show almost.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be.
I don't mind that. I feel like it's how they went about it. That's kind of where I'm like, huh.
Well, they went about it. Yeah, they went about it in like Stu said earlier, I think in reverse. Like,
yeah,
it's like they kind of let stuff be revealed instead of just this is what happened A to Z.
Right.
Like they kind of like start with one thing and kind of backflash, and it's kind of I can see it be confusing for some. But again, it's kind of supposed to be. It's supposed to be disorienting. You're supposed to kind of feel how they feel, like they don't even know they're dead at first, and then what is this thing? Is this real? Is this a dream? Is it the afterlife? What is it? Is it in my mind? Like, am I crazy? Like all these things that they're going through is kind of the way that the episode's set up. So it's supposed to trip you out and it's supposed to disorient you and make you be like, what? Because that's what he's going through. So artistically, I get what they did. And it's very it's what do you call it? It's ambitious, to try something like this with a Marvel show. But I think this is why this is the best Marvel show yet, because they really, they weren't scared to try some new shit, and I think they did well. We see evidence of the many people Mark killed in this episode in the service of Khonshu, and who apparently adopts a kind of Frank Castle-esque view on murdering to protect the innocent. And the audience is treated to the moment when Mark made his deal with Khonshu. We get to see it's a moment that shouldn't excite, but it does. The voice of F. Murray Abraham returning after a week away to give us a quick glimpse at the moment that started everything.
I love his voice.
I know. And I had caught myself thinking like, man, Liam Neeson would have been dope in that role. But my son was like, no, because then you would just know it's Liam Neeson. You would just think of Liam Neeson.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good
That's
point.
true.
It kind of sounds like it's good because it's like it's got that kind of tone to it. It was really good. But with all these memories, we also finally get visual and verbal confirmation of Mark's Jewish heritage. He's definitely Jewish. He's got the yarmulke. He's going Shiva. And they really, confirm it. which is a core part of his identity in the comics that many fans were afraid would be wiped out entirely. And so, kudos that they didn't ignore that fact, particularly given that Isaac is not, in fact, Jewish himself, Oscar Isaac, but it's there in the memory of the Shiva for Mark's brother and the way Mark mourns the death of his mother, showing up outside, his childhood home. He left in a kippah, drunk and unable to process his own emotions, which is where Steven comes in. That's when he, mechanism. And this is the moment. So I've been wondering, and I'm sure everyone has, why now all of a sudden is it mixing? Like, why are they
Yeah.
starting to see each other? Because obviously they'd gone this whole life never knowing each other existed. Why are they suddenly getting glimpses of each other and meeting and all of that? And that's what it was. It was the funeral of his
Because
mother.
I think that that they were trying to convey that. Remember, he was in the room and his mother was knocking at the door, and
Mm-hmm.
then he switched, and he was just trying to show him because Steven didn't know that he was the persona, that he's not the original person. One,
Right.
and two, he didn't know he thought that all his life, he thought his life was normal, and that's
Right.
why he was created to live a normal life. Because he told him that, he said, "Look, you got
Yep.
to live a normal life. You didn't have to go through anything. You didn't have to go through none of that." And he told him,
Right.
"I was always a killer." He said, "Khonshu made me what I." He gave me a chance to be what I always have been, a killer.
Right.
Like my life was messed up. I
Right.
did all these messed up things. Like in the beginning, when they were in the first room, and they were showing all the people that were dead, and the scales started balancing out when he just made amends for that. Like he was like, "Look, like I killed all these people, but they were bad people. They were people that deserved to die. Like people that
Yeah.
needed to be killed. And like I'm not
Yeah.
just some senseless killer. Like
Right.
I'm not just out here senselessly killing people." And that's where the scale started slowing down. And
Yeah.
then when they got in the next room, he was just like, "Look," because they basically were trying to show that even though he created these personas, they were, and throughout the whole show, they were always at odds with each other. If you go back to the first episode, he's always at odds with himself. And
Right.
that's why his scales was imbalanced, because he was just literally just fighting himself the whole time. When all he had to do is, like they always say, get out of your own way. That's why his scales balanced in the end
Mm-hmm.
when Steven jumped off the boat and helped save him. Steven would never do
Mhm.
that. He would never jump off. He would never, he'd be like, "Nah, you can do that." So Mark would have to do
Yeah.
all the heroic things. And then when you see the poster, Tombbreaker, you know, that was Mark. Mark was the one. He was Tombbreaker. He's the one that
Right.
goes on the adventures, that does these things. He's the one that can do the hard things, make the hard choices. Where Steven
Right.
can't. Steven's undecisive.
Right.
He can't make up his
Neurotic.
mind.
Yeah.
He's neurotic. He's all, yeah. He's either there or there. He's this or that, here or there, up or down. It's always considering both. Whereas in Steven's just straight arrow, boom. All right, this is what we need to do. Let's go get it done.
Yeah.
So that's why the scales balanced at the end, because he was able to say, well, you know what? I need to get all this life, all my time, I just need to get out of my own way. Because even with Khonshu, he was at odds with Khonshu.
Well, the
Instead of
scale
just
didn't
saying, look,
balance until Steven turned into
fell off
sand.
the boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Disappeared. He's no longer part of it.
Right.
Now Mark's just Mark. And I kind of
Well,
figured that. I'm like, how's he gonna balance? It's two. They're
Yeah.
two different, and you
well,
pull
now they
two
could have
arcs
balanced
out.
it.
Like,
Right. They could have balanced it, but the problem was they were always at odds with themselves. He was always at odds with himself, regardless of whether the
that's what I
persona
mean.
is created or
Having
not.
that split personality that's the being at odds part. But
Right. With himself.
not,
With himself.
yeah, right. But once that split personality disappeared, now he's just himself. I kind of thought, I was hoping this whole time that the reason it wouldn't balance is because Jake Hart isn't there. We need Jake Lockley. We need the third guy.
That would
Like,
have been good.
it would have made
That would,
sense, right?
yeah. Mhm. I
So
think that would
I'm
have been a
still,
good way to introduce him.
it would have. It would have. It really would have. And if they don't introduce him, then I'm really gonna be perplexed, because we've gotten so many hints. I mean, we've
Yeah.
seen them both not know how people are getting killed. Like that's an
Yeah.
obvious clue that someone else was in control. And then we had that part with the third sarcophagus was in that one room shaking. So it's like they're giving us all the hints that there's a third personality. And here it is,
But
the
not. I
penultimate
don't know,
episode.
Reno. I think they were just giving a sense that he's not. He's like he's off. Like mentally, he's off because remember when the guy had the scales on his arm and when
Hmm.
he grabbed his hand, he was like, "Whoa!" He was like, "You
Mm-hmm.
definitely." It just definitely not like it wouldn't stop moving. He had never seen
Not
that
balanced.
before,
Yeah, he's
right?
not
But
balanced.
on the boat, even the hippo said that I've never seen that before. I've never seen a person. It's either up like the scales. Normally on the scales, either like it's either up or down, or it's
Right.
balanced. His just kept going up, and his was just up and down. So
Mm-hmm.
it just never stopped moving. And
Right.
everybody that saw that with him kept saying the same thing. I've never seen that before. I've never
Right.
seen nobody whose scales just won't stop moving.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's moving or it's up or down, it's just he still wasn't balanced. So in order for him to get that balance, he had to get out his own way. He had to realize that the persona that he created was just a way for him to he was you gotta look at it like this.
He had to get rid of
He
it.
was
He had to get
mentally
rid of that
he was
personality,
mentally
that second
yeah,
persona.
Yeah.
right. He was mentally scarred. So it left him in a world where the normal rules of right and wrong they no longer apply. So that's why he created the second
Mm-hmm.
persona because it gave him a normal world with
But
normal
there's
rules. Remember, he
definitely
called
a
his mom. He
yeah,
called his
but there's
mom all the
definitely
time.
a third personality. There's definitely a
Oh
third
yeah, I
personality.
mean,
That's
listen,
I
a
mean, yeah, I'm not keeping my hopes up for it. I
well,
learned
listen,
my
I'm
lesson
not.
from WandaVision. I'm not doing it. It's
yeah,
just going to go to
I'm,
another
yeah.
I'm
Mephisto.
just going. I'm just going to
So
take it for what it is. I'm going to
yeah,
take it for what it is. I'm not going to even guess at a third persona. I'm just going to say, look, we'll see. I'm
Yeah,
going to
we'll
leave it
well,
at
see.
that.
Because I
We'll
don't
see.
care at
We'll
this
see
point.
what
At this
happens.
point,
We'll see
I
what
don't
happens.
care. This was the episode that if they
they,
didn't do it, I don't care. Now
yeah,
it's like
don't even
okay,
bother.
don't bother now.
You
If
spent the
they
Or
whole
didn't
maybe they
episode
like, yeah,
diving
they
into
saving it for
Mark's
next season.
psyche,
You know,
and you
yeah,
don't
they just
bring in
save.
Jake. So don't
yeah,
even
They
bother.
saving it for
you
next
can't
season. You know, that's all.
yeah, you can't put
Yeah.
it all in one. Well, they're saying this is the only season. I mean, they're not doing most of these
Oof.
shows aren't getting second seasons. They're just single miniseries, and they kind of have
So if
confirmed that.
this was the only season,
Oh
then
my
why
god.
the never mind. Then why even do it? I
Exactly. Well, that's
mean,
the thing. And
I
that's the
mean, why
question.
even do it,
The question now is why did they do this? Was it just because we need to do a cool show? Moon Knight would be cool,
bro?
or
They
is
left us
it?
hanging.
Or
They
does
left
it?
us hanging.
Is it gonna?
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's. I think that like every other show so far, it's gonna end up somehow weaving into the movie. They're introducing this character, and then I think Moon Knight will be in some movie, whether it's this phase or the next one. But I think they're introducing Moon Knight for the movies because they've all said a million times that these shows are just to sort of foreshadow for films.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of them. That's
But
why
at
we're
least with the other shows, there was some type of closure with these characters. And if we see them in the next movie, okay, we can follow where they
yeah.
left off. But with Moon Knight, it's so like open right now. Too
Yeah.
open for one episode left. Like
For one
so I
episode
don't
left.
know.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
better they gotta do something big next episode. They gotta do something
They
big.
got it.
Next week has to have some major closure. Some a whole lot of shit needs to happen. You know, no more dragon feet. Like it has to immediately start off and just run to the end because there's a lot they got to cram in there if they're gonna make this thing, if they're gonna pull this thing out. But back to what I was saying about the Jewish aspect and all the stuff that they sort of added in, and I wouldn't call it a relief to finally see these small elements, but as they are a serious change from Mark's backstory in the comics, which deeply connects his deal with the moon god to his heritage. There's a connection there. In some continuities, Mark allying with Khonshu comes from his difficult relationship with his faith, with Judaism. Having turned his back on Judaism after his father was the victim of an anti-Semitic attack. which his father responded to only with faith and not the aggression that Mark thought the situation deserved. Basically, he wanted he expected his dad get revenge on these skinheads,
Yeah.
that beat you up or whatever. But he just went the turn the other cheek kind of way, and Mark was like no, and that's kind of in some continuities and some iterations. So, however small or a small start it's still a start. And with the only 6 episodes to outline the beginnings of one of Marvel's most complicated heroes, the changes made seem necessary and appropriate, still respecting the key parts of Mark's and Steven's history without making them a joke or a stereotype. And, meanwhile, all of this is intercut with hallucinations of Dr. Harrow. He's a doctor now, the version of Ethan Hawke's character that audiences experienced last week, speaking to Mark and Steven as though all of this week really is just in their heads. And, he's a scathing and unkind portrait of a psychologist, which not a great representation coming from someone who regularly sees a psychologist, but I digress. And this is through him, ironically, that Steven comes to accept the death of his and Mark's mother, and that Mark reconciles with Steven as part of himself. But the entire episode is kind of like a therapy in a way.
Yeah.
It is kind of necessary, a healing that every great hero must come to terms with in order to be the best version of themselves. But this episode, I think, manages to balance both the mystical and the very, very real with stunning grace, both revealing in the magic of Khonshu and the Egyptian afterlife, and honoring the roots of a character that's so important to so many people for a myriad of reasons. I mean, this is, I think, the first Jewish superhero. And this episode gives Mark and Steven the respect they deserve as characters, honoring their history, Mark's mental illness in a way that, frankly, I never expected out of a Marvel television show. I'm still blown away that they went this way, in a good way. And while this week lacks its globe-trotting adventure aspects, that the show has kind of been known for, and its super action, fights and all of that stuff, this is perhaps the most important episode so far. Bonding Mark and Steven together just before Steven's knocked into oblivion, leaving Mark stranded and alone in the afterlife with his scales having balanced only to throw everything else off kilter. And now that it's balanced, he's off into, their version of heaven. And what happens now? He's fully dead. You're in heaven now. So I'm really, how are they?
I don't know where they're gonna
Well,
go.
because they were just telling it, right? Because at the end of the episode, what I got from it was that Steven didn't have to balance his heart; he had to balance his mind. His mind wasn't balanced.
Yeah.
It wasn't his heart that wasn't balanced; it was his mind, and that's what the whole trip took
the
him
heart,
through. It was an emotional
metaphor for the mind.
Well, it just took him through a whole trip where he just, because if you look at all the doors they kept going through, they weren't heartfelt moments. They were all things that you have, like he said, you kill all these people and then you try to sleep or you try to remember or act like you can't remember.
Forget. Yeah, try to forget.
Yeah, you try to forget. You try to forget all the people. So that's his mind was what needed to be balanced. So
absolutely.
Yeah, but can I say I didn't enjoy it? No, because I did.
Yeah,
but
it
was just it was like Slade said, it was just trippy, man. Just trippy.
And it's like
not in a bad way. Yeah, not in a bad way. It's just I expected. I don't know. Just this episode, I expected it not to be so. How can I put it? It just I don't know. I expected more. It's still too much mystery.
Yeah.
So like you said, hopefully this next episode knocks it out of the park. Answers all the questions, crosses the T's, dots the I's. Hopefully it's like an hour and a half long.
I know. That's what I was gonna say. It needs to be longer.
Right. And hopefully we get a 2-hour episode. Yeah, hopefully we get a 2-hour. And please give me some more Moon Knight. Like that. Can I get some more Moon Knight?
Yeah,
can I get some more Moon Knight with my TV show, please?
Right. Can I have some more Moon Knight with my Moon Knight show?
Oh boy, I don't want one conversation about them passing the mantle to Layla until we get more of him in the damn suit. That's what I want. And I'm kind of sick of Harrow at this point. I don't really understand his purpose anymore. He just seems very insignificant. And at this point, for me, he's very boring. He kind of reminds me of Scarecrow from Titans season 3. For those who don't know, basically he would just come in the scene, give a speech, and go somewhere else. Now he's not as bad as Scarecrow because he doesn't take up a bulk of the episode. But it's just like, aren't you supposed to be the villain? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't see that, but yeah, I get what you're saying. And the idea that Steven had to die for Mark's scales to balance feels like a betrayal of everything up to this point. Where does that leave us? Like, but perhaps what seems obvious on the surface is not reality, because perhaps they balanced because Mark finally accepted Steven as part of his life, a vital part of his existence that he cannot go without. Perhaps there's a much deeper meaning to be discovered in the field of reeds that he's in. After all, Marvel is known for their unexpected twists. So
I felt Mark created Steven as a buffer because certain things he just couldn't handle. He couldn't handle the death of his mother. He couldn't handle the death of his brother. He couldn't handle a lot of things that just happened and like that literally just happened.
He couldn't handle his mother blaming him and hating him.
Yeah, couldn't handle none of that. Like, all of that. He couldn't handle any of that. Yeah. Those things are called life, and they're life moments, and they happen. I just think he couldn't handle it. So I think he hid from it all his life. I mean, listen, he can go out there and kill 5 guys and swing from ropes and shoot guns. He can do all that. But when it came to just the basics of life, he just couldn't handle those things.
Yeah, that's why I said in my video that hasn't been released yet, but I was like, so now that Steven's gone, is Mark going to really face these raw emotions head on? Like, is he going to actually get help for all this trauma? Like, what are we gonna do? But with this one episode, it's just that's a lot to unpack. So I don't know. I mean, I hope we get a little bit, but it's a lot.
It is. I agree. Well, yeah, I mean that's it. I mean, Moon Knight 5 kind of leaves us like, what the fuck's Moon Knight 6 gonna be? That's kind of the bottom line there. I can't wait. I'm still like, honestly, at this point, I'm just like, okay, cool. It was a good shot, but give me Obi-Wan. Give me Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I'm ready to move on.
We got a couple days. When's it coming out? Middle of next month.
It's like March. A couple weeks. March 27th. It's like a month. It's about a month from now.
Oh, I thought it was next month.
I think it's exactly like next month. No, it's March. It's May. I'm sorry. It's March 27th. I keep saying fucking March. May 27th.
May 27th. Yeah, I'm like, bro, we going backwards, ain't we? Like,
yeah, my bad, man. Yeah, May 27th.
yeah. Like I said, we got a little bit, almost a month. As of today, right? Yeah, today's the 28th. Today's the 27th. Yeah. So we got 1 month.
1 month.
The
27th.
Of
May is a Friday, but we get 2 episodes. So instead of it being the 25th, which is their normal airtime, which is Wednesday, they're pushed it 2 days, but they're giving us 2 episodes to kind of make up for that 2-day wait. So that's dope. I'm glad to get 2 episodes back to back. That's super dope. Hell yeah.
I'm down with that. But we also get Doctor Strange next month.
Oh yeah, boy.
That'll be the first weekend of next month. We get Doctor Strange, and that also will be on Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, I can't wait for Free Comic Book Day.
Yes, because Marvel has a tradition of releasing a Marvel movie on Free Comic Book Day. They've done it every year since they started making those movies.
Oh wow!
They've always released. If you go back, they started.
Is that right? I didn't never notice that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Because every free, you know why I only noticed it? Because every Free Comic Book Day, I would always go to the movies. And I was like, yo, this is not a coincidence. Like, I'm here. Like, I saw Captain America: Winter Soldier. What's the other?
Because Free Comic Book Day was on Saturday.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's yeah,
They
it's
released
like
the movies that
that
Friday, but
weekend.
that Saturday,
Mhm.
that weekend, yeah. That
Yeah.
weekend, we always saw a Marvel movie. I always saw a Marvel movie on Free Comic Book Day. I would
Mhm.
always go that Saturday and check something out. Get my comics, go to the movies, and be happy all weekend.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited for Obi-Wan. I don't know how many episodes they're giving us on that one. I have to look into that. But
I do know they
6
showed new screenshots of the Obi-Wan.
Yeah, the pacing is a bit oofy, but
Yeah,
yeah, I knew from the jump that this was going too slow. Once we got to like episode 3, I'm like, okay, they could have done all that in episode 1. All of it, the whole first 3 episodes. So yeah, they drew it out, I think, a little too long. But maybe, like I said, they wrote it ahead of time, so they got their plan. They know how it's gonna end. So I guess, next week's just gonna be so so much closure and so satisfying, right? It's gotta be. But yeah, speaking of Obi-Wan, can't wait. Screenshots. We got one new shot that's not in the trailer, and this is the sort of controversial look of the
Inquisitor.
Inquisitor. Yeah, and everybody, he doesn't look like he does on the Clone Wars. No one does.
Because he's animated on the Clone Wars, so his
Exactly.
features. Listen, everybody out
Yoda
there,
looks the same on the Clone.
we're gonna tell you
Anakin
right. We're
doesn't
gonna
look.
tell you here first because we're the
tell
hardcore fans. Now, when you watch the animated series, everything's animated. That's why he looks so tall and long.
Right.
His features are long.
Exaggerated.
His head is a little
Exaggerated.
long. Everything's exaggerated because it's animated. All right,
Mhm.
that's the difference. That's why.
Yeah.
I just
But
want
this
to,
this uh this image shows Rupert Friend's Grand Inquisitor using his double-bladed spinning lightsaber, which you guys have seen on the Clone Wars. If you haven't, he's got a lightsaber where the handle and it's got two
yeah,
blades and it just spins around like a helicopter or something like that. And the show, which premieres on Disney next month, we got Ewan McGregor returning as obviously Obi-Wan alongside newcomers Moses Ingram, Kumail Nanjiani, Sung Kang, and others names that I also can't pronounce. But the Grand Inquisitor will serve as one of the show's primary villains, in addition to Ingram's Reva, and Kang's fifth brother, and of course Darth Vader. But the Grand Inquisitor and otherwise unnamed Puan Male made his franchise debut in the animated series Star Wars Rebels. A high ranking Empire operative, he was responsible for hunting down the remaining Jedi in the years following Order 66. And he took a special interest in the rebel crew of the starship Ghost. Before his fall to the dark side, the Grand Inquisitor served as a Jedi temple guard and was involved in the events surrounding the bombing of the temple during the Clone Wars. And in Obi-Wan Kenobi, his Inquisitor is one of the many threats to Obi-Wan throughout his stakeout on Tatooine as he looks after young Luke Skywalker while the Empire continues its goal to eliminate all the remaining Jedi. And in the cover story of the latest issue of Total Film magazine, the new image gives fans a closer look at Friend's Grand Inquisitor. In the photo, you can see him wielding his signature double-bladed red lightsaber, presumably flanked by stormtroopers. And the latest image implies that Disney is doubling down on their design choice for the Grand Inquisitor because there's been so many complaints
oh
about
God, yes.
the look.
Yeah,
They're
the
putting
look,
this
yeah.
image out to say no. We're not going to change it because you complained on Twitter. We're not changing fucking shit. This is how he looks. We're standing behind it. And and I agree 100%. He's not supposed to look like he does on the animated show. He's not supposed to. No one does.
Right.
That's an
That's the whole
exaggeration.
reason. Right. That's the whole reason for animation. You got
Exactly.
animated, and then you have anime. Now, if the Disney series was an anime, like Disney has
It would
anime,
still look different.
they're right, but their features are not as elongated. They're not
Yeah, it
as
would be a
stretched
different in
out.
another way.
It
He'd
would
have
look
big ass
more
eyes.
realistic. Right.
Yeah,
Right. It would
would
look
just
more.
be
It
different.
would look more realistic. It would be more. But and like when you watch Bugs Bunny cartoons, why do you think Bugs Bunny has such big hands? Why
Right,
do you
right.
think he has such big feet? He has
They have
huge
3
rabbit feet.
fingers and shit.
Right. He's
Yeah,
got three
that
fingers,
shit
but his fingers,
works
his
better
fingers
in
are the
anim
size of right. His
right,
fingers are huge because it's
right,
animated. Right.
right,
That's the whole reason behind animation.
right. And after his live action look gained its fair share of criticism from the fans, they put this picture out to sort of let you know this is their design choice. This is how they're going with it, and hopefully you'll figure it out. But even though the Grand Inquisitor's rounded head and not so yellow eyes don't exactly replicate his Rebels look, he certainly seems like he'll be a menacing Obi-Wan villain on the show. And while it's unclear just how large of a role the character will have in the upcoming series, the trailer and his recent photo do confirm that he will be present for at least some of the action. And this sneak peek teases what could perhaps be an epic face-off against him and Obi-Wan, or someone else in the way of the Empire. And it'll be interesting to see, like, if the show will feature flashbacks to the Clone Wars era and stuff that went on then, or Rebels, and where viewers might possibly get a glimpse of the Grand Inquisitor as a Jedi temple guard, which I love that kind of shit. I love lore. I love seeing the backstory of things. But whether or not, the series will explore his past, the Grand Inquisitor and other members of the Inquisitors are sure to, be a major big bad to Obi-Wan as they, sort of hunt him down and the other Jedi. Because the Order 66 was meant to wipe out all the Jedi in the galaxy, and it's kind of like I guess it was George Lucas' way to explain what happened to all the Jedi, but it's kind of kind of silly that all these Jedi masters were sort of like fooled by clones, like clone troopers. Like, come on, they couldn't sense that shit was about to pop off. They would have, but again, it's just storytelling. It's a device, a plot device. But yeah, so they continue to hunt them, and they hunt them, throughout, and that's the whole reason that Obi-Wan is on Tatooine. That's for those who don't know. That's why Luke Skywalker grew up on the desert planet with his uncle, and that's what Obi-Wan was doing there. He was sort of keeping a watch over him because he was at the same time trying to make him unnoticed by just making him like a farmer kid. And he was, old Ben the Hermit, and they were just trying to like have no Jedi stuff happen. So he's just trying to like watch him grow up without training him, without, sending out any force vibes or any of that. So he just kept his distance. And I guess he never really meant to ever train him as a Jedi or any of that. But when Princess Leia, involved with the rebels and trying to take down the Death Star, they had got the plans, if you watch Rogue One. So then she took the plans, put them in R2-D2, and sent R2-D2 to find Obi-Wan on Tatooine. And that's how we get Star Wars. And
You know
so,
what,
but
Reno? That's not even the real question. The real question is, why did Obi-Wan say he didn't know who R2-D2 was?
because
R2-D2 said that I am the property of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
he said, I don't remember owning a droid. He didn't say, I don't remember that droid. Remember, he didn't say, I don't remember Obi-Wan. He said, I don't remember owning a droid.
That's still denial.
No,
no matter how you look at
it. No, it's not, because here's what he's doing. He's doing a few things in this, because this has been discussed. He's doing a few things here. One, he's denoting that what R2-D2 said about being property. I didn't own a droid. He wasn't my droid. He's just a droid. I didn't.
It was actually Anakin's droid. It was actually more Anakin's property than anything.
Exactly. He was Anakin, but he's being very vague about everything. He's straight up lying to Luke in a lot of ways. I mean, Darth Vader killed your father, and like a lot of the stuff in that conversation, most of it was all him trying to elude away from the reality and trying to keep Luke from learning any of this stuff, and trying to sort of keep him away from it, or little as, kind of like, shit you need to know as little as possible kind of thing. So he was being purposely evasive in a lot of those questions. And I was wondering, like, my son was actually wondering, he's like, why is his name Ben? Where did he get old Ben? And I always wonder, Obi-Wan Kenobi. How do you get Ben out of that? But it's actually been made canon. Well, there is a reason. He was given the name. He was given the nickname by what's her name? She's the Mandalore that he was in love with, the Mandalorian queen, Duchess Satine. And I'm super excited that Star Wars now, Lucasfilm now, Karen Kennedy's Star Wars has actually made Legends canon, right? Because they wanted to say all Legends wasn't canon. They've finally made the origin of Obi-Wan's alias Ben canon. It's from Legends. And when the two droids, C3PO and R2D2, arrive on Tatooine in the first movie, they have the message for General Obi-Wan Kenobi. Luke Skywalker guessed that they might be referring to this old Ben Kenobi, a man that they consider that he considered to simply just be a strange old hermit who lived out beyond the Dune Sea. He had no idea that this man was actually an aged Jedi master who spent the last couple of decades watching over Luke himself. And Obi-Wan had gone by the name Ben before, which we've seen canonically in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and in the old expanded universe, also known as Legends, it was an alias he was particularly fond of, according to John Jackson Miller's novel Kenobi, because he'd been given the nickname by Duchess Satine of Mandalore, a woman that Obi-Wan had fallen in love with back when he was just a Padawan. And with the Jedi long gone, Obi-Wan couldn't help looking back at his life and remembering her with affection and honoring her by taking on that name. But the canonicity of the Legends origin of the name was called into question when Disney acquired Lucasfilm back in 2012. They said, they just made this ridiculous statement that, Legends wouldn't be canon anymore. However, it seems that this particular aspect of Obi-Wan's backstory is being restored once again, because Lucasfilm has released an excerpt from Mike Chen's upcoming Star Wars novel Brotherhood, which is set shortly after the beginning of the Clone Wars. It sees Obi-Wan visit his old friend, Dex. If you guys remember from the prequels, the big guy with a bunch of arms that he worked in the diner. He was a big alien. He worked big guy, worked in the diner, and he went there to like see what this dart was. He was trying to get it, see if he recognized the maker of a dart that was thrown at him from the assassin. And so he goes to visit Dex, and who points him to recent broadcasts of his old flame, Satine Mandalore. Used to call you Ben for some reason, he says with a chuckle. And it seems Lucasfilm decided that this remains the perfect explanation for Obi-Wan's Ben alias. And there's something kind of heartbreaking about this revelation. It hints at the depths of regret Obi-Wan felt during his exile on Tatooine, suggesting that he looked back with sorrow and wished he'd chosen a different path for his life. And Obi-Wan blamed himself for Anakin Skywalker's fall to the dark side. And he presumably wondered how different the galaxy would be had he simply left the Jedi, all those years ago. And the choice of this name also indicates something about Obi-Wan's self-identity after the events of Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And it's significant he went now by, that name that he would have, if he had chosen a different path, and hinting for a time at least that he considered himself no longer a Jedi at all. And the name's origin also serves as a reminder that Obi-Wan and Anakin were more alike than they wanted to admit. And there's a fascinating parallel between Obi-Wan's romance with Satine and Anakin's marriage to Padme. With Obi-Wan showing more integrity than his young apprentice due to his desire to commit to one path over another. And ironically, as the years passed, both Obi-Wan and Anakin found themselves haunted by the memories of their past, loves of Padme or Satine. And Darth Vader went to incredible effort to try to bring Padme back from the dead. I mean, that was the whole reason that he joined Palpatine and became Darth Vader, because he was promised that he could bring Padme back. While Obi-Wan chose the path, of harder living, of, just, dealing with shit as it is, as a Jedi does, finding balance and, with the constant reminder of his love, Satine. And every time he was called Ben, he would have known who'd first called him by that name. And so for Obi-Wan, I think that Star Wars is a tragedy. for Obi-Wan. I mean, it's a tragic story for Obi-Wan. If you think about it, he's just had a really shitty time, and then he dies like after being a hermit for years. It's not like wasn't a super happy. But that's the great thing, man, about Star Wars. That's why I love Star Wars so much, as you can probably tell. I'm a big Star Wars nerd because it's so authentic, and it has tragedy, and it's not just a happy-go-lucky kids superhero movie or whatever. It's got substance. I think it's one of the greatest stories ever told, ever in history. And I think it will always be remembered. Hundreds of years from now, they'll be talking about Star Wars, just like we talk about Homer's The Iliad, right? Or Tolkien's, Lord of the Rings. I feel like Star Wars is up there. And also Qui-Gon. I'm wondering if we're going to see Qui-Gon's ghost in this, because you guys remember Qui-Gon, right? From the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
That's Obi-Wan's master. And when Darth Maul killed him, he came back to Obi-Wan as a Force ghost. He was the first one that did that, right, Stu? Wasn't he the one that like invented that shit or taught
Who,
everyone how
Qui-Gon?
to do it? Yeah.
Who, Qui-Gon?
Oh wow, he
Nah,
started.
Qui-Gon didn't become from what I've read, there was a guy that I was working with. He was a huge Star Wars fan, and I read this one book he had, and it said if you become one with the Force, like anybody can come back as a Force ghost, but certain people become one with the Force. So when they die, their body disappears. So like
Mhm.
when Obi-Wan died, that's why he told Vader, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than ever. He
Right.
became one with the Force. So he'll live out the rest of his days as a Force ghost. When Luke died, he became one with the Force. So he'll always live out the rest of his days. Remember Yoda's body just disappeared. Qui-Gon's body didn't disappear. They actually burned it.
The reason
And then
is the reason is because Qui-Gon was the first to come back as a Force ghost, and he did it. He did it later, and then he taught those guys how to do it so that their body would just disappear. Because he
also
does
they
come back. Yeah, so that they could. That's how they're able to just do it the right way. He was just like the first one, so he had to die and then figure it out, and then he taught them, and that's why they just disappear when they die. Because Qui-Gon understood the Force better than Luke and Yoda. I mean,
yeah, that I agree with, yeah. And better
yeah,
than Obi-Wan. Because
better than
remember
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan was remember Obi-Wan was kind of like, I don't know, he was kind of like hard headed. He didn't
Like
remember
anxious,
Qui-Gon
yeah,
just
like
be
an
like, look,
angst,
yeah, he
yeah,
was like anxious, yeah. Because remember he used to be like, look, you need to slow down a
angsty.
little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Bless you. Okay.
What was that? Grab sneezing?
Yeah.
That was an old grandpa sneeze.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, Star Wars, the franchise isn't always consistent when it comes to the definition of balance in the Force, or what even the Force comes from and all of that. But Qui-Gon proved that he understands it, its original meaning better than even Luke Skywalker or Yoda ever did. And the Force, because the Force is an essential component of the Star Wars franchise. I mean, without it, there's nothing, but it's might as well be Buck Rogers or something. But introduced as the source of power and faith for many of the in-universe organizations, not just the Jedi and the Sith, but the Jedi and the Sith being the most prominent and powerful. But there are others. But the Force is described as a universal energy that exists throughout the galaxy, but it also has a dark side, which some characters believe must be balanced with the Force's light side. And because you've got light side Jedi, the Jedi, they're just light side, and then the Sith are just dark side. But then you have gray Jedi, which I think that's the way to go, because they find a balance between both sides. But the original and the prequel Star Wars trilogies never refer to a light side. They just say the Force, and then there's the dark side. And since their depiction of the Force establishes that there's only the natural energy in the galaxy and its unnatural corruption, the dark side, the Force may be ubiquitous, but it takes discipline to master. while the seductive dark side is easy to master, but ultimately takes a far larger toll on the user because it has consequences when you use the dark side. That's why Sith are always, they always look all fucked up because using the dark side literally fucks them physically up. And while the seductive dark side, is easier to master, um, you know, we have, who um it has negative effects, and they have to make what's akin to like a Faustian bargain to embrace it, like they're selling their soul in a way. And numerous canon Star Wars properties, such as like the sequel trilogy, subscribe to the idea that the Force has two sides, the light and the dark, and that both can be positive or negative in the right circumstances, with the balance, being found between the two. But what I'm saying is that Qui-Gon, like 2018's one-shot comic, Star Wars: Age of Republic, Qui-Gon Jinn, um, has Qui-Gon travel to the charted but uninhabited world, strong in the Force, where he receives an an uh an like an epiphany, like a vision among the world's Force imbued and dark side corrupted plant life. And Qui-Gon's conclusion adhered to the original and prequel trilogy's understanding of balance in the Force, where the Jedi must evolve or risk being infiltrated by the corruption of the dark side. And that, and that this can be achieved without violence. In the discussion with Yoda, Qui-Gon, he further states that no balance will be found by using the dark side, a sentiment not shared by Luke Skywalker in the sequel trilogy. Um, Qui-Gon's views contrast with both of those of Yoda and Luke Skywalker in this comic. And the Jedi Order once had far more malleable lifestyle for its members, allowing the expression of emotions and even attachments like romances, allowing Jedi to remain in touch with the ordinary societies that they protected. But when Yoda became the Grand Master, he's the one that made his interpretation of the Jedi, conduct with a more restrictive, the norm for all Jedi Knights, leading them to become rigid, by the time of the prequels, leaving them vulnerable to the Sith Order's manipulations. It was because, he no attachments, no love. That's the shit that allowed Palpatine to manipulate Luke or Anakin, because he, that forbidden, him, having to hide his love with Padme and all of that, like that shit, it backfired on Yoda, and Qui-Gon understood that. Like Luke Skywalker says in the Star Wars: The Last Jedi, he says, and not that this is like a good movie or a good example, but he said that the balance in the Force is powerful light, powerful darkness, a view that's repeatedly contradicted by the original and prequel trilogies. But Qui-Gon states that the Jedi are risking imbalance by becoming too rigidly set in their current ways, but that balance can be achieved without the dark side, which turns its users into, megalomaniacs. But Qui-Gon's understanding of the balance of the Force, which the original 6 Star Wars films demonstrate, is that one must be strong enough to not bend to the dark side, but not so much that they'll become rigid, you know what I'm saying, and stagnant and actually break ideas that Yoda and Luke Skywalker went against. So I don't know, man. Like to me, Qui-Gon is like the ultimate master. Like he's the ultimate sage. Like people mostly say Yoda and some people say Luke, but if you look back, Qui-Gon's the one that really set all this shit off and allowed all this shit to happen. Like he's the one that, wanted to train Anakin and believed that Anakin was the chosen one, right, Stu?
Yeah, thought that they all. Well, he did fulfill it. He did bring balance to the Force. I mean,
Yeah.
in the end, but yeah, because they couldn't understand why Qui-Gon was, was just so bent on him when Yoda kept telling them no. So
Right.
even then, it's a balance between light and dark because had they not trained him, everything that happened would have never happened. So Palpatine would have probably found a different way to, overcome the guy, and it probably would have been even worse.
Exactly. Exactly. And well, Lucasfilm is working on another animated Star Wars anthology. So if you watch Visions, if you haven't watched Visions, I implore you. It's the illest shit. It's like some of the
Yeah,
best thing
Visions is.
that's come out since like I don't know, The Mandalorian. Like
Oh,
straight up. Like yeah, like it's the best. It's definitely better than the sequel trilogy. But yeah, in addition to being an anthology, Star Wars Visions was a brilliant testament to how refreshing and exhilarating the Star Wars franchise can still be when it, you know, is written by people that understand it and love it and have a passion for it. And when it dares to like sort of loosen up and sort of wander off the beaten path of its, you know, core saga, and that's cool. It's cool to mix it up and change it up. But a second season of Visions is one of the big things that fans have been hoping for, hoping to hear about at this year's Star Wars celebration. It looks like there's another anthology series to be on the watch for. And though we're still a few weeks out from this year's celebration event, a listing of the convention's panels went up earlier today, along with descriptions of what attendees can expect to see and what may have been a mistake given now how the page was initially pulled. One listing for the panel hosted by Mandalorian's Dave Filoni and Amy Ratcliffe has seemingly confirmed the existence of Tales of the Jedi, a new anthology of animated shorts. And if y'all are familiar with Tales of the Jedi, the comic series, Dark Horse's 90s era comics chronicled a number of significant moments from the Star Wars expanded universe history, thousands of years before the events of the original films. So Tales of the Jedi show could serve as a way to bring some of the old Republic era's lore back to Star Wars canon. So like this is probably, I'm more excited for this than anything that Star Wars has coming up. Like this is the illest. The old Republic stuff for me is like the best part of Star Wars. Legends is the best part of Star Wars, not the movies. To me, it's the old books or the books about the old times, the comic books about the history, the stuff that took place thousands of years before Luke Skywalker. So Tales of the Jedi is something you guys want to look out for. That's going to be super epic.
is that animated or live action?
Yes. No,
Yeah, it's gonna be animated.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
animated.
Oh, okay.
There was something else. Well, okay, so like I said, it's good to like mix it up a little bit, but it's not what I hate when I keep repeating about how the sequels trilogies, I hate them. I hate them. But it's because Lucas had original plans, but Disney's Star Wars ruined them. The sequel trilogy, it's very divisive. People either hate it or love it, but the people that hate it, it's mainly because we know what it could have and should have been. Because had they actually adhered to many of George Lucas's original sequel plans, we would have had a much better movie, trilogy that made more sense. Didn't just change everything. I mean, it was just, if you don't know, like Rey is the new Jedi, but how is she a Jedi? How does she have powers? She's never been trained. Like they don't understand what even a Jedi is. It's like they think you can just like decide because you have the Force that you can just be a Jedi. It doesn't work that way, and Disney, they went right to work changing the script that Lucas had set out. And the franchise at that point had already thoroughly had depicted the lives of the original trilogy heroes, their descendants, their new enemies, and the non-movie material. So Lucasfilm rebranded all but the original 6 films and the Star Wars The Clone Wars as Legends and made it an alternate continuity. And Disney Star Wars sequels ultimately followed many of Lucas's ideas on a basic level, but without the same understanding and reverence for the previous films that Lucas might have had. And while cast members and action scenes in Star Wars prequel films pleased many, some of the more common criticisms of the movies were that they leaned too heavily on homage to the original films, basically like retelling the original story, basically becoming derivative in the process. And, while characters like Rey and Finn were wholly unique from the original trilogy heroes, scenes like Star Wars The Last Jedi's throne room sequence and the Battle of Crate felt like unimaginative retreads of the other, better Star Wars films. And the sequels also appear to have been inspired by the Legends continuity in some areas, though Kylo pales in comparison to Jason Solo's characterization. His name was Jason Solo, not Ben Solo. There's a whole different, he's just a way better character. And the Final Order was hardly a worthy substitute for the Dark Empire. It was just, I don't know. I could go on for days about this, but I'm not going to. But this is definitely our Star Wars episode. We talk Star Wars on Wednesdays, man, because why not?
Yeah.
But Stu, you got to get to work. It's 8:00. We're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah. We gotta wrap it up.
But
Moon Knight was great. Batman was great.
see you Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, Saturday slate. But for the most part, great show.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, I will see y'all Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And remember, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube. Y'all know what it is. Peace.
Peace.